it gives me an absolutely great pleasure to be able to have LA Metro's innovation office here today, and representatives from LA Metro. But honestly, Marcel Perez is going to be speaking today. He's the Deputy Chief Innovation Officer at LA Metro. He's going to be talking some about his own journey, but giving you a real perspective in terms of some of the real, I just can't begin to tell you the kinds of things that they have been doing and continue to do in LA Metro. A little bit about his background. Like I said, he is the deputy chief of the area, but he came out of before that. He was with, I think, the LA Department of Transportation. He's also been where he was a sustainability officer. But when you listen to him talk about the different types of mobility projects and initiatives that they've done that have really been about being able to expand opportunities, particularly from the standpoint of being equity centered so that all people really can have access. Okay. And so it's been, bike share programs, dockless systems. I mean, just we were just talking about an integrated fare medium and just trying to think about how do we, in fact, wind up operationalizing this whole thing in terms of making sure that what we do is equity centered from the beginning. So I'm going to really be excited myself to be quiet and listen, because the other thing is that they're also preparing for the 2028 Olympics, I think it is. And if there were not even more things, okay, that are in store. So, for everybody who's here and for all that will be looking at this on YouTube, once again, it's LA Metro, and we're going to hear, I think, a little bit or quite a bit about innovation and the serious work that they're up to in their community and in their region. So I turn it over to you, Marcel, and want to thank the folks. Miguel, I see Ida, and Jose may be here. Okay. And so just a pleasure. I turn it to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Scott. Really appreciate the kind words and for thinking about LA Metro, right? To contribute to the to the dialogue and to the library of incredible speakers that you already have had before me, and I'm sure you will continue to have after me. I first just wanted to give a quick shout out to a couple of my colleagues who are also joining. Um, Miguel Cabral, Jose Ramirez, and then also Ida Safai. A lot of the work that we do here at Metro really depends on collaboration, cross sector, right? Innovation, people office, operations, and so again, we're just really fortunate to continue to work with some of the finest people in the game. And with that, I'm just really excited to talk to you a little bit about the work that the Office of Strategic Innovation does. Talk to you a little bit about my career path, which I think is really important for folks because not everyone's path is the same, right? And I think you have to really be authentic to your own to your own beginnings and to the journey, right, to get you to where it is. And maybe that will be infrastructure and transportation planning or city building. Um, but in either way, I think it'll be important to just you being a person, right, living in society, with all of the changes that continue to happen both at the local, regional, national, and international level. Um, and then, I definitely want to. I think we'd be remiss to not talk a little bit about the work that we've been doing in planning for the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games. And so I think that'll be a little neat perspective to get people interested and excited about not just what LA is doing, but how that is also influencing some of the work that's happening nationally as it relates to FIFA World Cup, which is happening in 2026 and will be in, I believe, in like 11 cities in the United States, including Mexico and Canada as well. So with that, let me go ahead and jump over to my next slide. So again, I am first and foremost a Southern Californian. I was born in Torrance, California. I grew up in between Orange County and LA County. Um, I attended community college. I was a community college product from Cypress College. And then I was able to transfer to UCLA, where I did, um, I majored in history and Latin American studies. It was a double major. And I had the opportunity to also, towards the end of my time at UCLA, to pick up a minor in public policy with a focus on urban planning. Um, that was really interesting for me because it was history and Latin American studies was clearly influenced by the experience I had in high school and in community college. And Latin American studies was really kind of a homage to the fact that my parents are both immigrants. They're both born and raised in Colombia, and they met in New York City in the 70s. And so my upbringing really was that of experiencing what it is to grow up in Southern California with intermittent travel to Latin America, visiting family, and sometimes spending up to 2 or 3 months over summer. Um, you know, and that experience was really interesting because um, growing up in Southern California, my parents were like, "We're picking you up, we're dropping you off." There wasn't really a lot of walking involved, especially because of the suburban footprint of Orange County. But when we would go summers to Latin America, my mom would be like, "See you later." And I would be walking, biking, riding a horse, jumping in a taxi, jumping on a bus, doing all of these things. And where I never really dawned on me until I was probably much older, in college, thinking about um, and taking a class specifically with a professor by the name of Dr. Leo Estrada, who taught a class about planning in minority communities and really just the way that planning and policy decisions can have both positive and negative impacts, right? Dr. Scott mentioned my interest and a lot of how I center my work around equity. That really was formative, right? And for those of you who have had the opportunity to read about it or to experience it or from your own family or your own friends or the own coursework that you've taken, but the issue of freeway building, right? How that destroyed communities and separated communities, the issues around redlining, like all those things are all intertwined, right? And I think for me, connecting my own lived experience with like a classroom experience that was being taught to me really was like mind blowing. And so
Yeah.
that really led me after kind of just exploring my own interests after undergrad. Some of that included helping a friend open up a sneaker shop in Long Beach. One of those things included like working as a accountant, like helping an accountant do taxes, and then um, it ultimately led me to working for a small women-owned consulting firm in Orange County that did first-time home buyer programs and mobile home rehabilitation for smaller jurisdictions, right? And so I was really much there doing project management work, right? Helping people fill out a grant application, helping them guide through it. And so it was the understanding what it takes to like run a program and administer a program, but I was still very curious about the why. Like, why does this program exist? What is the
Mhm.
problem that it's trying to solve? And so that led to me going back to UCLA. And so I went back to UCLA to do my master's in urban planning. That was so there was like about a 3 or 4 year gap from undergrad to grad school. Um, I figured out the sneaker business was not for me, um, and um, and I just had more of a curiosity. So when I went back to UCLA, I really wasn't thinking about transportation at the time. I was really thinking about international development. And so thinking about what it would be like to work on housing issues in Brazil or Colombia or just really that interest of like where my career and my life could take me. And I really had that interest and that calling to think about that.
Mhm.
So that was informed by the fact that I studied abroad in undergrad in Rio, and I got to do some community work in favelas, which are like basically kind of like the ghettos, right, of Rio, like slum housing, but very entrepreneurial, independent community spirits in these places, um, more of like just informal housing settlements. Um, so, and it's not listed. It is kind of listed here. You'll see it. The Trans Consult.
Yeah.
That was after grad school. That was me going to Mexico City to explore an internship with an NGO that turned into working as a consultant that did toll roads in Mexico. And again, it was just a
Okay.
really interesting experience for me. Um, it combined my interest in transportation with my interest for international development.
Mm.
Um, and you know, like when I made that leap to move to Mexico City, um, I sold my car. Right, I turned in the keys to my apartment. I was like, I may not come back. I may not come back.
Yeah.
And about 10 months later, I was at a crossroads. It didn't work out. It wasn't the right fit, with that job, and I was longing for home, and so I came back. Right, not as like I would never by any means say it was a failure. It was like such an eye-opening experience. And so being back in the States, being back in mom and dad's house, right, trying to explore what the next opportunity was, a friend of me sent me an email and said, "You should apply for this job." And I'm like, "What's the job?" And it was working for then a city of Los Angeles council member by the name of Eric Garcetti. It's this young guy um, who himself had done international development at Columbia, who had
Awesome.
you know done work in Africa, and so like then I come in with my experience, and what is he looking for? He's looking for someone with transportation experience. And when I start talking to his team and interviewing, little do I know there's like 70 people who applied. That Eric Garcetti was on the list on the list of everyone's top list of people they wanted to work for because he was so inspiring. Um, and like what really I think drove it home was the fact that I had had an international perspective, right? And that they were looking for someone who wasn't business as usual, tied into uh,
Mhm.
you know the day to day LA issue. Like, oh, we can never. LA is about cars. We can never think about LA differently. And
Mhm.
so that was my experience, right? I jumped in there, and I didn't just do transportation, but I did economic development, I did planning,
Yep.
I did
Yep.
arts and culture, I did immigrant affairs, veterans affairs. I was in the field on the weekends. I was writing council motions at night to be introduced at the next morning session. One of those that I remember was happened after one of the commuter rail crashes in Chatsworth, and so that was something that you know it happened an afternoon, I think like on a Wednesday or on a Thursday, and that night we wrote a we researched what had happened, and it was this issue around something called positive train control, right? Technology.
Let's see.
And so
Mhm.
we drafted a motion and we introduced it, and that led to reform happening, right? And it was that kind of quickness and that ability to understand the role of the elected official, of
Mhm.
policymakers, to affect change. This was around 2008, 2009. If you remember, it was also around the recession. So this
Yeah.
office also did a lot of work around foreclosure protections. And so it was like having all these impacts and understanding that there are just windows of opportunities that you have to strike, right? And so it's up to you to really, constantly be doing your research and your work, but really to understand how to get things done, and how to benefit your constituents. So fast forward, because I want to get to the other transportation stuff that we do in Metro, but I feel like the career path stuff is so important for everyone, especially folks who are thinking about their career path and what's next for them.
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
how things can lead into each other. Well, um, apparently, as I came to find out, my boss at the time had ambitions to do more than just work as a city council member. So he ran for mayor, and so I
Mm,
got to see and volunteer on a
mm,
campaign and get to really know the whole city. And so through that work, um, I got to understand not just our district, which is a really cool district, Council District 13, which was Hollywood, Echo Park, Silver Lake, um, Atwater Village, Elysian Park, Glassell Park. But now we were on a campaign. So I was visiting South Los Angeles,
yeah.
uh, Northeast San Fernando Valley, right? Understanding, wow, like what are all these are all the different issues and challenges that people face. And so you know, I think you guys know how it ended. He won, and then I had this opportunity to go then decide, do I want to do transportation or do I want to go do economic development, which I had also been
Yeah.
doing. I really, thought about, what I believe has some of the biggest impact on people's lives is transportation. You know, um, that and housing. When you think of the costs that people incur, especially here in Los Angeles, housing costs is a big one, but so is transportation because of the need to be able to access jobs, to be able to access educational opportunities, healthcare opportunities, recreational activities. Um, and so I jumped in, head first. And I was really fortunate to work for a gentleman who had worked for the previous administration, right?
Mhm.
That was the other lesson that I learned from Mayor Garcetti was that he was about building teams, and he didn't care if you were with him at one point or you weren't. He was really about coalition building, and leading, right? For those of you who are not from Los Angeles, you may not know that the city of Los Angeles is just one city out of 88 cities in the county of Los Angeles.
Mhm.
But you would think that the mayor, runs everything. Well, he's going to get the blame and the accolades regardless, right? And so I think his ability to be a convener, to bring people together, to align, and to be a mayor for all mayors in the county was, I think, really strategic on his end. And so when we came into office, um, we took the best from the previous administration and we continued to build, right? At this point in time, Mayor Garcetti had already served 12 years as a city council member. And so again, I think that I think was really important to really understand the importance of coalition building and the importance of like getting down to brass tacks and to work. And so one of the things that ended up happening over the course of the next couple of years is Mayor Garcetti led the passage of a sales tax measure, Measure M, that would bring um, a total of about $40 billion to LA Metro to invest in transportation projects. And for those of you who who understand kind of what it is to get a ballot measure passed, and it's different from county and from state to state. In the state of California, to get a sales tax measure passed, you need a supermajority. You need over two-thirds of people to vote yes. Even more interesting was that the people of LA County had voted in 2008 to tax themselves around Measure R for LA Metro to get sales tax revenue for transportation infrastructure projects. So he did the same thing 5 years later, 6 years later. And so now LA Metro is probably one of the best funded transportation agencies in the county. Oh no, in the country, And so what's interesting though is that Mayor Garcetti, and this is also probably because of his interest in like as like a national leader and understanding that mayors really have huge impacts nationally. He um, he took that playbook and started sharing that playbook with other mayors across the country through a nonprofit that they established called the Accelerator for America. right? And
Yeah.
so and those things are really important to understand. Well, after having this just incredible experience in the elected office, I I decided to do like a slight shift, and so that's where you see me jumping from the mayor's office to the city of Los Angeles's Department of Transportation. And the
Okay.
for that was there was a couple of things. One, um, I was interested, I think, in getting a raise, right? You know, and so again, I think you got to think about that too in your own career path, your own value, and like understanding the options and not be afraid to move, right? Especially if you've learned what you're going to learn in that job, you know? Now, take that with a grain of salt, right? Because people, I think, you know, I also see people, and this is an advice to some of you folks who are looking at jobs who do things that are moving every 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. That's not good, in my opinion, right? You may have a different perspective. Um, but this was, right, this move was, you know, from 2008 to 2016, working with Councilmember Mayor Garcetti. It was 8 years of my career working, you know, in that office where then I moved to the Department of Transportation because I needed to understand what it was to work in a department and to
Mhm.
manage staff that were union protected staff, to develop a budget from a departmental perspective, to understand the constraints, to build a team within those constraints. Um, and so like that was pretty neat for me. At one point, I managed the taxi team and like the ambulance permitting team. I managed the bike share program. I managed an electric vehicle car sharing program.
Mhm.
And again, I was also just part of the executive team, so I just also provided a lot of strategic advice to our general manager on elements that were not just transportation related, but it was really around strategic thinking about how to get initiatives passed within the city council and working with the mayor and kind of making that connection. And so yeah, that was incredibly rewarding. Um, that was 2016 to 2022 ish that I was in the role at LADOT, and you all know what happened during that time was the pandemic, right? And so there was a big shift and a big ability to like for me to really reprioritize the things that I worked on. A lot of it had been around transportation technology, autonomous vehicles, um, you know, urban aviation, um, looking at how to manage scooters, but from the technology standpoint, creating a data feed specification that was required of all companies who operated scooters in the city, so that my team could see real time where every single scooter was in in uh, in the city, and it became so effective that that data specification that we created is now adopted globally, worldwide. So if you're in Paris or Lisbon or Bangkok and you're operating scooters, it's most likely that you are providing real time data in the exact format that we required. And that was really a huge uh, achievement because it allowed cities to do what they do best, which is regulate and manage the right of way, right? Like what I like to consider, think of us as like kind of the grown-ups in the room, right? We have kind of got to set the standards, and all of these private operators who are motivated by other things, not just mobility and sustainability, but they have to make a viable business model work. It was the way that we were able to, um, I think at the height, we were seeing 20 million trips a year in Los Angeles on scooters, right? Which which is a way to leverage kind of the private sector. Um, so fast forward to a couple of years ago, I decided to kind of keep on challenging myself to think about what was next. And I made the transition over here to LA Metro to work in the innovation office and to help lead. the 2028 games planning, um, while also doing and continuing to build on some of the legacy programs that the Office of Strategic Innovation is responsible for. So let me go ahead and talk a little bit about OSI. Um, OSI serves as an incubator and implementer of innovative ideas for LA Metro. It was established in 2016 initially as the Office of Extraordinary Innovation. I think we're still extraordinary, but when CEO Stephanie Wiggins took over as CEO here at LA Metro, and really was thinking about putting her own stamp on the agency, um, she thought innovation was going to be very important. But I think she opted to really kind of change that and put her own fingerprints on it, and we were rebranded as the Office of Strategic Innovation. Um, and over between 2022 and 2023, that's where Salita Reynolds joined as my boss, Chief Innovation Officer. Salita was also my former boss at LADOT, and I was her former boss when I was in the mayor's office. And so I've had this great opportunity to work with someone that I think is one of the most amazing leaders I think in this space, um, and and got was able to join this team, um, not just because of Selena, but because of also I incredibly value and look up to Stephanie Wiggins and the work that she's been doing, dedicating herself to this field and to Metro. So what does OSI do? These are just some of the verticals. We do strategic planning for the agency. So we led a strategic planning process that was really agency focused. There was an initiative, there was a strategic plan created several years ago that kind of really was launched during the pandemic. Um, but when we joined the Metro, our task was really to take that strategic plan and really make sure that we were implementing and operationalizing it through the lens of Metro's employees, right? So that it was very clear that our budgeting, that our KPIs were really tied to the strategic planning. And so that's something that an effort that we just wrapped up. And there's still a couple of action items that we have to do, but that's one of them. The other one is around partnerships. And so we manage the portal where if you have a good idea, if you're a company, if you're a nonprofit, if you're a stakeholder and you have an idea, you come to our website and you submit your idea. And we take that idea and we tell you exactly how to fill out a form, like the information we need, what our position is on paying for things. We don't really pay for ideas, right? Like you got to come with your idea and understand how it's funded. We're not going to pay for a pilot. Um, but we have gotten a lot of I think to date we've probably received over 300 or so proposals. We've probably gone to market, implemented around maybe like 10% or 15% of those. uh, and it continues to be a way that we are open for business and encouraging innovation to come to Metro and to partner. And so what we end up doing is we actually develop a review team of subject matter experts in the agency to review the proposals, to give feedback, and to decide whether or not we want to move forward. Or it might be where we say, hey, we're already thinking about that. Register as a vendor because we're going to be issuing a solicitation later this year, right? So it's a really good way for folks who are out in the field, at conferences, or if people are, if the CEO or if some of our board members are getting asked or pitched an idea, they send them our way. The other one that we do, the team that we do is the pilots. And so we sometimes on our own just have ideas that we want to move forward with. And so we create and go after grant money or request budget and we incubate our own ideas. And then lastly, major events. And so that really one is, I think the major one is around the Olympics and the Paralympics. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the coming slides. So this is the org chart, right? So there are people. It's not just me and Selena, but we are anchored by a team of supremely talented folks. Um, I think that in addition to the positions that we have budgeted, We also have a rotational program, and so we take on innovation fellows that come from other parts of the agency.
Oh, great.
And so, some of them have come from HR. I really remember a fellow that we had a couple years ago who was great, Kerman. He was a bus driver, you know, uh,
Mhm.
20 plus years as a bus driver, but just also wanting to contribute to like at a different level and understand. And and I know he's continuing to kind of look and see at the agency. I think he wants to transition from being a bus driver. He's had a satisfying career, but he wants to get into other parts of the agency. And so it's a really good opportunity to expose people to opportunities. And so as you think about your career, continue to think about what are those efforts that will kind of expose you to the kind of your next job, right? And your next relationships. So again, we're at 10:35, Dr. Scott. I wanted to just see how much more should I go for before we open it up to questions.
I think you get into the Olympics and then I go maybe about another 7, 8 minutes and then open to questions. Okay.
Okay,
This is fascinating. I got notes down here, but I won't say anything. This
awesome.
is great. Wonderful.
Um, so LA has hosted the Olympic. This will be the third time in 2028 that it hosts the Olympics. I think the first one was in 1932, then 1984, and now we're going to be hosting the Olympics, and for the first time, the Paralympics. And so we're really excited about that. This was something that was awarded um, by the International Olympic Committee. Paris and Los Angeles were both awarded at the same time. Paris to be 2024, and us to be 2028. And so, oh wait, come over here real quick, please, please. And look, here's my boss right here.
Deb, hi, Dr. Scott.
Selena, good to see you. This is fabulous. Oh my God, this is so good.
It's great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So again, I got to do something for the boss, but I'll get that to her.
Stephanie,
um, and so yeah, a huge opportunity for us, and we're so happy that we get to go second because it gives us more time to do the planning.
more time.
And but Paris did such an incredible job, and so we have a lot to live up to, and so we're excited. And we hope to, um, as you'll see, put on an incredible event. And so we talked to you a little bit about the games by the numbers. We expect over 12 million to 15 million tickets to be sold. Um, we expect over 700 ticketed events, right? Um, 60 days of operations, between the Olympics and then a little bit of a lull and then the Paralympics. At the peak, we expect an additional 1.2 million trips that are going to be required to move people through the region. This is on top of us providing the service that we do day to day, right, to all Angelinos. So it's an incredible feat. Um, just to give you a spatial kind of view on the venues, they're spread out across the region. Um, and I think the one thing, the note, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Super Bowl, um, or maybe that for you Swifties out there, the Taylor Swift concerts, right? Like the games is equivalent of like basically hosting two Super Bowls a day. No, seven Super Bowls a day. Seven Super Bowls a day, throughout the region, coordinating at different times. And where the Super Bowl, you might just have one event happening um, at SoFi Stadium, which is one of our kind of premier stadiums here that hosts the Rams and the Chargers. Well, in this case, you're actually doing a morning event, getting all those people out. Then you're doing an afternoon event, and then you're doing an evening event, right? And so imagine just the number of logistical things you have to take care of to move those people and get those people not just the spectators, but I think the athletes, the media, the referees, etc. So one of the things that we've done is Metro is like 3 years ago embarked on developing a mobility concept plan for the games to really understand and address how we're going to meet this increased demand. As I mentioned, in terms of the time commitment, um, this is kind of a snapshot of what that'll look like. Um, 16 days of Olympic Games, 13 days of Games, and so those specific periods of times, we're really going to need to stand up a new transportation system to meet all of that demand. These are how we organize our plan and how we're going to address all of the various needs. A games route network, for those of you who are not familiar with the games, one of the requirements that the International Olympic Committee requires is that there be dedicated lanes specifically for the games family. And so in this top left-hand corner, you see like a rendering of like, LA 28 on this, right? LA 28 vehicles only. Um, that is because they need to ensure travel times. I think maybe that's, one of the things that this came from was maybe like the Atlanta Games, where one of the athletes was stuck in traffic, right? And so
Yeah.
they need to guarantee travel times from the Olympic Village, from the media broadcast center to all of the venues. And so there will be a network that is put in place for this travel. Metro, one of the requirements that we have of the Games Route Network is that we also allow buses to access it because we want to make sure that we're prioritizing our bus network to getting also the spectators and the people to move around LA at that time. Yeah. So there's also just things that you could expect. What's the role of bicycling in first mile, last mile, of walking? How do we make improvements to our rail system to make sure that we're maximizing throughput and passenger travel? And then I think on the bottom right, how do we just make sure that we're continuing to evolve and um, to really move, leverage technology to kind of make a seamless experience. I feel like for those of you who are joining, all of you, I'm sure, use this for so many different things. Your cell phones, right, for work, for communication, and so making sure that um, we can leverage technology to make sure that people are having a seamless customer experience. Couple other projects really are how do we use traffic signal coordination? What is the role of access services, which is our disabled access service, right? To make sure that we're supporting those folks and their mobility needs. Um, what's the role of like open streets and actually just closing streets down for biking and walking as part of the plan? Um, so here's where we talk a little bit about each of these things, like the Games Route Network. Um, I want to put this one is really the one that's going to be the biggest lift. So Metro or Los Angeles, for those of you who don't know, and I mentioned it earlier, right? In 2008, and then again in 2013, we got a mandate from the voters that they wanted more transportation infrastructure before the games were even an idea. And so, um, separate from the games related needs, we're on track to by 2028 to have spent $17 billion in building new rail, bus, first mile, last mile mobility hubs improvements. And so the K line in South Los Angeles, the airport connector at LAX, the D line extension um, from Koreatown to UCLA, uh, the A line extension into like San Gabriel Valley all the way out to like past to like Montclair. And so like there's all this work that we're doing and investing, but even though we're investing all that stuff and we're providing so much more service, we still estimate that we're going to need to stand up another system for the short period of time, which is the games. And that is something we're referring to as the Games Enhanced Transit System, the GETS. um, and so, and one of the reasons that that's going to happen is because the LA28 and the IOC um, are not going to allow parking at the venues because parking is now that space is now security perimeters, back of house operations, and so it's going to be a really unique opportunity for us to really see how we can move people in LA without cars. Now, don't get me wrong, Angelinos are experts at figuring out how to drive. So people are still going to drive, but the traditional lots are not going to exist at the venues as they normally do. And so what that means is that we're going to need to stand up another 2,700 buses. Huge feat. So we're working across the country with other transit agencies to borrow buses. We're building a contingency fleet of our own buses, et cetera. Um, so I want to kind of zip through, you know, um, and basically say that this is an incredible effort where, you know, some of my colleagues will tell you the number of days. I think we're like at 1,000, you know, 22 days or something before the games. Um, there's an incredible amount of work that needs to be done, not just by Metro, but by our local cities, by the county, um, by the state, and I think most importantly, really working closely to see how do we secure this funding, which we're estimating at $3.2 billion from the federal government. And so this is going to be a huge effort, and really excited, really proud to be part of the team that's helping to bring it all together. So I want to get into the questions, but I know the recording is taking place, and I want to just really quickly move through these slides that are about that you can access and you can reference. This is about the opportunities that Metro provides to create the next generation of transportation leaders. We have a school here in LA County that has an emphasis on transportation, on infrastructure, that we've partnered with the LA County on. Um, it includes a Transportation Career Academy program um, that will be accessed. But I think for most importantly, for those of you who are looking at how to join Metro, take a look at this slide. This really lays out our internship opportunities. We'll make sure that Dr. Scott and the team have the necessary links that you can use because we'd love to have you here, not just for the 2028 games, but think about World Cup and FIFA. If you're in the LA area or if you have family or friends in the LA area, think about getting down here. We're going to need also volunteers, and so these are the types of experiences that can be once in a lifetime that may shape your career path, right? And thinking about the opportunities you have to be an entrepreneur or innovative in your own right as you navigate your future and your career. So with that, I just want to say thank you and thank you, Dr. Scott, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, don't everybody jump at one time, okay?
Well,
Chris,
I
did you
wanted to
hear
say
there
actually,
you go, because he was talking about tolls earlier, and you're at Rhode Island toll and bridges. And so anyway, hit it, Chris, okay?
I just want to say, first of all, your story was kind of reassuring. Was able to relate to it because my mom's actually a Dominican immigrant. I'm going to community college right now, and like you were saying, I'm right at that stage where I'm kind of figuring out what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, pretty much. So that was really reassuring, seeing how you kind of worked your way up and found something that I think you really have purpose in. But
Right.
the partnerships program was what really caught my interest. I think that was really interesting because so many people have good ideas but don't really know how to bring them to life. I was wondering, just does anyone just submit their ideas and you kind of just help them bring it, or like, are there requirements to, how you get that assistance?
Oh,
You're
I'm
on,
here now. I'm sorry.
you're on mute, Marcel.
Yeah. So yeah, let me so we do have a portal. I'll share. I'll drop that in the link. Um, you
And
know,
Marcel, we'll make sure on the 24th of April, we have a session with the youth specifically to talk about, and one of the items is going to be all these different opportunities that are available. So we'll make sure we come back and include these as well.
yeah. So I went ahead and dropped a link there, right? I think it is important, right? Like I try to, I think I try to paint the picture of it as being, it is a tool for us, right? Um, I also, and this is a question that some of our board members have asked, right? Like, what is the role of Metro for like really fostering an idea that is like at a seedling level, right? Um, and that's not really what this does right now, right? This is like kind of an intake, but I think it's, it's important for you to understand what an agency like us would require, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we're always willing to have conversations with folks because your idea may not fit into like the requirements that we have. But my whole thing is it's like an entry point, right? And so like Chris, like, let's say you had an idea to do something, but you didn't understand financially how it would work. You didn't have to do that. That's candid feedback we would give you, right? We're like, hey man, like we're not going to build your idea for you. You have to come with your idea and like your financing or your things that are ready to go. But that's the real world, right? And so that's something that we're happy to talk to folks about. But I think it's a good opportunity for you to start seeing like, oh, what is required to kind of pitch. So I'll give you an example. Um, there's a company that does porta potties. They're called Throne, and you use your phone to open the porta potty, and the porta potty is time limited, and so you can only have it for like 10 minutes. There's a baby changing station. I think it's self cleaning. And so they presented that idea to us. They said, hey, Metro, we understand that you're trying to improve your customer experience, that maintenance is an issue for you guys on bathrooms. It's something that your customers want. So we're going to pilot these with you, and you can tell us what you think. So they came and they put these portable porta potties using smart technology at 4 stations. And then they had, you know, the customer feedback. We were able to see through data how much usage. We were also able to work with Metro's transit security folks, maintenance folks to understand like, is there a value there? Are people using it? And evaluate it. They did that at no cost to us, right? But then that was for a time limited. Then we said, wow, this is great. There's no one else doing what you guys do. We actually want to contract with you. And so now we contract with them and now we do pay them. But them testing out, it has to be at no risk to us, right? Like, or the risk has to, we have to evaluate the risk, and it has to be something that makes sense and that our subject matter experts are like, yeah, we want to try that, right?
Yeah, it does make sense. Kind of like a way to, kind of give people opportunities, see what's gonna work for you guys. Yeah, kind of good, benefits everyone. I like that. Yeah,
Yep.
it was
That
interesting.
is, that's
So I
great.
see some questions in the chat.
Yeah,
Sure.
I could actually go to the very first one that we got from Mr. Adam Rosenfield. He was asking about the Innovation Fellow program and how that worked. More specifically, he was curious about how did the bus driver transition? So if you could speak a little more on that one.
Um, so Kerman, he, I think, he spent a year with us doing some of that work, and it's time limited. And just to also understand, these folks have to get approval from their unit and from their bosses to come. And then they have to say, okay, we're investing in this person to come and do this opportunity. They're an outstanding employee. We hate to lose them, but this is something that we value, right? Because it'll give him another perspective. He can continue to lead. Um, so, I think he was kind of bummed. I think to be honest, to like have to transition back. He really enjoyed the work and the exposure that he got to do here. Um, and so I actually ran into him. Well, two things. Shortly after his return back to being a bus operator, I ran into him again. And it was at a press conference with USDOT Secretary Pete Buttigieg. And Kermit was up on stage talking on behalf of operators and some funding that we got from a grant from USDOT. And so I think Kermit, like, you know, I didn't get a chance to talk to him too much, but like he continues to lead, right, and have exposure to these things and kind of to be trusted for these opportunities. And so I thought that was cool. And then the second time I saw him was just a couple weeks ago. His bus layover was in Pasadena near my parents' house, and I just happened to be outside. And I said, Kermit, so what's up? And so we were just chatting, and he was, doing his route, doing his thing, right? But I think as far as I know, he continues to look at other opportunities within the agency, and that definitely on his resume is this opportunity that he had being a fellow, contributing to some of our program work.
That is, that is, I tell you what, I gotta answer, I gotta say a couple, one, Marcel, I can't, this has been unbelievable. Okay. And I want to say too, I saw folks from the Inland Empire on here, okay, which is just right up the way. So make sure you make all those notes. I mean, we have everybody's welcome, okay, but we got some that are right in the neighborhood. So make sure to make, but just like takeaways, there was so much that you said that just resonated, was almost, I could say check mark, check mark. But I just want to kind of say this, history. Okay, he said, when you guys say, well, how did I kind of get started? Was history. Look at how private sector, nonprofit, public sector, I mean, just all that. Okay. And then a piece that he said a little bit earlier, he said strategic thinking.
Yep.
Okay. And so I always laugh and tell people, even before they get ready to run, thinking, giving yourself the time to really, portfolio development, experience and exposures, not just thinking about the money, okay, but actually think really, and then being able to get those broader exposures. And that's why transportation, a lot of times, it's about things and stuff. But what does it do? It's the outcomes, okay? And so being able to see how we connect these dots, which to me is what also we say so much about mobility, okay? You know what I'm saying? Because those are your when he was talking, those gateways to was housing, it was about redlining, it's public health, it's about this. Because what is it that we're doing? It's helping people in communities relative to major outcomes, okay, whether it's jobs, whether it's the hospital, whether it's employment, whether so all of those kinds of things. And then being able, one reason, the experiential piece, he said, and then I got it because I could connect what I was doing or what I had experienced with what this was. And that's a lot of what the challenge is about, is being able to understand that it's really about more than the stuff. It's like
Right.
we ain't the it. It's what we help really communities and people be able to do. So there were just so many, I could just keep on connecting dots. Teamwork, the man, he said it one time, teamwork, the no islands here, partnerships, collaboration, cross-sectoral. I mean, just you want to get as many pieces in your toolkit as you can. I'm telling you the same thing I tell my grandchildren. Get all the tools, equip yourself. Okay, and I'm saying, and in there's a whole lot in terms of being able to unify your purpose and your passion. And when you can get that right, or get it, and plans are made. That's what they are. Plans are plans. Okay. And so, but when you can get that right and being able to have family time, balance time, all of that kind of stuff together, then you're gonna be fine. You'll be fine. That's it. So anyway,
We got another. We also have a
oh,
couple
there's
more
a question.
questions in the
Okay,
chat.
let's
Right.
go. Quick.
This
Okay.
one was from Matthew Ellis in the chat. He asked, for something like the Olympics, how far out did the team begin planning for something like this? I know we're still 3 years out, but when does something like project planning for something like this start? Are you guys made aware when the general public is?
um, so we started LA Metro started its efforts around 2 or 3 years ago, and that's kind of that slide that I showed on the mobility concept plan. But remember that um, the award of the games came even before that. You know, I think some were probably like 2018, 2019, right, where it was actually awarded. Um, so yeah, it takes a while, and everyone you actually ask who works on the games, they'll still tell you it's not enough time. You know, and so
Mhm.
one of the things also in LA for the LA games is that there is no funding specifically allocated for the transportation piece in the host committee's budget. There and that's not new. That isn't new. For Atlanta and for Salt Lake City, funding did come from the federal government. This is a global event, right? And so um, the need to kind of rely on federal funding, not just for transportation, but also for security, is something that's going to be is critical to the success of the program. And so, um, so yeah, so we started, 2 or 3 years ago, um, 3 years to go. Um, you know, we we ask for information from the city of Los Angeles and from LA 28, the organizing committee here. They're a nonprofit that just exists to put on the games, and so we work really closely with them to try to get the inputs that we need to do the planning. And so we can't do the planning if we don't know the venues, right? We don't know the planning if we don't know the program. Like it matters how many events and how many tickets are being sold at each event. It matters understanding the security perimeter, right? And so some of those things by design happen later than maybe we would want, right?
Mhm.
That's just how it goes.
All right, thank you. This is a personal question that I just had from my end. Like in the past year, what's been like your favorite part of like working at LA Metro? Like obviously all the Olympic stuff is awesome, of course, but like what have you enjoyed throughout the whole process, like recently?
um, I really enjoy a project that we're working on around a mobility wallet. I can try to find a link to it, drop it in the thing. But basically, and this is work that I started at the city of LA, but we have a pilot program where we provide um, on either a physical debit card or an electronic debit card, um, $150 a month for low income qualifying residents of LA County to use transportation. So you could
Mhm.
buy a bike, you could book a taxi, book an Uber. And it's really this kind of understanding that, like, hey, we're the backbone. Like, our bus and trains are the backbone, but we may not be able to deliver all of the mobility you need for all the trips that you need to make, right? Like you may say
Mhm.
like, "Hey, I live in South Los Angeles and I want to go to West LA because there's a better doctor there," right? And so, and you're a senior and you're fixed income. And so can this help relieve a little bit of that friction that you would have if you would have to take like a 2-hour bus ride? Right. And so that is something that we're super proud of. We also recently deployed, our team did an analysis around the fires that just happened. And we're also targeting impacted households from the fire and getting them some mobility wallets as well. But great question. And then I just gotta say it. The other awesome thing that happened is I got to go to Paris last summer to do observations, and so we about 40 staff from Metro went, and we really worked with the city of Paris to understand and to feel what that looks like.
Oh, that's fire.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Dr. Scott, I do got to jump to another meeting, and so I just want to thank everyone and thank my colleagues at Metro for joining us too. And we're happy and looking forward to continuing the partnership with this great organization.
That's it. And I'm glad to see Kenneth with USDOT was able to join us today too. So thank you so much to everybody. Take care.
Kenneth is right. If there is any special link to get the LA Metro discount on the Olympic tickets, just hit me up personally. I'll be the first one to purchase that one. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Thank you.
I do know we haven't designed it yet, but I know that for Paris, and for LA, the volunteer corps is expected to be upwards of like 40,000 people. And one of the things that I think that I saw in Paris is that they do give tickets to volunteers, right? And so like that's something that needs to be designed and understood in terms of how that's going to work. But again, for those of you in the LA region or thinking about coming out, like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. People who went to the 84 Olympics that I run into still talk about the 84 Olympics. So anyway,
Okay.
thanks everybody.
Thank you so much. Please, and please make sure to tell Stephanie hi for us. Thank you so much. God bless. Take care. Great.
Awesome.
Okay. Take care, everybody. See you next week. Thanks.